Well, good afternoon. It is December 4th, 2018, and this is our monthly huddle. My name is Mary Lynn, and Kevin and I will be hosting our end of the year call with all of you. So I'm going to let Kevin start it off with the agenda.
Okay, thanks, Mary Lynn, and thanks for joining us, members. It's December. Are you feeling festive, or are you feeling that it's the end of the year and you got a million things to catch up before you can be festive? I think that's where most of us are at. With that, I just want to start with our welcome to new members. It was a busy month last month. We're really excited about all of these new members. We have San Diego Workforce Partnership out of California. Fantastic. We've been working with them a while to make this happen, so we're really pleased they're with us now. Covenant Employment Services out of Utah. That's great. Another area of coverage for us there. Northwest Center added a new state for us. That's very exciting to us. They're also a very large agency, and they have a number of contracts we think are really going to help us to get some folks placed. So that's also exciting to us, and a place that we worked on for quite a while to see this through. And last but not least, we have Genesis Development out of Iowa. The more the merrier in Iowa. I just love how well we're covered in the state of Iowa. I think we don't have every corner covered yet. Mary Lynn's still working on that, but we appreciate every new member that comes our way, and those that have the desire to do this work. The map that you can see that we've had updated, we like the look of. Mary Lynn, maybe you can scroll down just a little. There you go. Look at how nice that is. We've had our comm team help us with that and jazz that up a little. I think it's easier to see where we're located now. We're in all the states that are blue. So there you go. We've got a little more work to do, but we're filling in the map, folks. We're filling in the map. I think we're going to be looking even better next year. So that's our hope. Let's look at some stats. We've got some pretty great stats, I think, to cover today. We didn't work on the assignment stats. We do those occasionally, but these are the relevant basic stats that we like to share every time with you when possible. This shows our goals for the year and where we're at. And I think this is just a great reflection of all the hard work that's happened this year to see all these goals met and then some. For the most part, we have a goal of 75 members for this year. We're at 77, so we've surpassed that goal. That's fantastic. I know earlier in the year I wondered if we'd make that, but boy, we surpassed it. That's fantastic. The number of states we want to be in is all of them eventually. So that's a lofty goal, and we will get there eventually. We didn't make that goal this year, but we're going to keep pushing to get every state in the mix here with Aiden, some representation in each state if possible. The assigned participants goal for this year was 750 assigned participants. At the time we pulled this report, it was 791. I should say we surpassed that too. Again, all these stats are really a reflection of all of our efforts. So I just hope you're all proud of what you're seeing here. Percent of participants currently employed. Our goal is at a minimum to always have at least 40% of the folks we're serving employed. I think that, obviously we want it to be better than that. But that's a minimum goal for us that we always want to be meeting. We're at 52% as of the time these stats were pulled. That's fantastic. Over 50% we think is great. So to give you a perspective, that's 411 people working. That might not sound like a lot for a project this size, but we all know if we're here on this call how complicated this work can be, and helping people to see the path to self-sufficiency. It could be scary, challenging. Lots of things that get in the way, lots of barriers, and so 411 should be something you're all proud of. I really like this next stat I'm going to share with you about the participants that are employed 6 months or more. I think this really tells us how we're doing with folks in the follow-up support phase, phase 2, I guess Social Security likes to call it, of the program, where people are working and we're following up with them. We're at 34% of our folks that have been on the job 6 months or more. And I think that number will keep increasing, and I sure hope that's what we see. It takes a while to get people the job, and then sometimes people start part-time and then move into full-time. So all these things take time, and I still think we're seeing things unfold on a larger scale for Aiden and what we're up to here. This next stat is one that I know Mary Lynn and I are proud of, that we have 44 certified work incentive practitioners representing Aiden. To give you context, folks, I gave context like this to our management internally here, and I think this is just good for you to understand. The WIPA project nationally, we were on a call, Mary Lynn and I recently on a employment network call, and I think they said there was 400 CWICs for the whole national WIPA project. And we've got more than 10% of that share under our roof. That's pretty impressive. We know that's core to our success. We know how complicated it is and how, it's hard to fit all this into your schedules of things that you do already. So we're really just so proud of our members for taking on that additional responsibility and then learning to master it, which takes time. It does take time, and it can be cumbersome, this work. But again, I'll come back to probably what you heard us say when you first came our way, which is, if it's this complicated for us, imagine our participants without somebody in their corner helping them figure out how to navigate this maze they call Social Security. So just kudos to each of you that have taken that on. That's a great number. We want to see, obviously, all of our members at some point based on our PSA with this certification. So there's more work to do here. But just a reminder, if you haven't put your certification, if you are certified, make sure your certification is in your record, and that we know that it's in your record because we have to code that a certain way to show us that you are certified. That's how we get these stats. So just make sure that's in there and we're giving you credit. Next bit of news. This is kind of a big deal, folks. We've mentioned to you in the past that we get audited. We were not kidding. We are in our largest audit to date, and 25 participants were selected. That doesn't sound like much probably to all of you, but if you saw what was required to send in for each of those 25 participants, you might think differently. It is a lot to prepare this. I will say this about the audit. If you did not hear from Mary Lynn and I about this audit, that means everything worked as it should. That means you had your record up to date. You had the participant services up to date. Everything else that was required to be in the record was in the record. And we carried on our merry way, developing the paperwork for the people that were chosen, maybe that are on your caseload, without notifying you, because you did everything. If you did hear from us, that would mean that there was a participant service note maybe missing or some other key piece of information we needed. So does it happen? Yes, but I got to say, I love it when we can go into our system and deal with an audit and never have to let you know, other than just a notice like we're giving you now on the huddle today. Okay, so I guess this is my plea to all of you to keep your service, participant services up to date, because these can happen. I mean, we don't know when we're going to get audited. We had a pretty good idea this one would come at about this time this year, but additional audits can come throughout the year. So that's why we're always chasing you down for that. I want you to understand how important that is. It's not just important for the audit as well. I want you to understand that it's important for payments. And I'm not going to steal Mary Lynn's thunder. She's going to talk to you about that today. But that sort of fits hand in hand with this. One other thing about this that we've noticed as we were pulling some records here is just to make sure when you put a service in that you code that as a participant service. Don't code it as a phone call or a meeting. We want that listed as a participant service. That's how we pull, with a report we've created, information about the services you provided each of your participants. It only works if it's coded as a participant service for us. Can we find that in our system? Otherwise, yes, we can. But we've organized everything to make this efficient on a large scale, which Aiden is. So as long as it's listed as a participant service. So keep that in mind. I know there's other options, and there's appropriate timing for those maybe, but anytime you have your monthly notes, your services for the month should be listed under participant service. That's going to make our life easier. So we are going to be submitting everything for the audit this week, and we'll see where this goes. The only way you would know, if you ever look in a record, we will put a note in there if your participant was audited, and then if there's any issue after that, of course, we'd give feedback. But we don't get that feedback after the audit for quite a bit. There's quite a few things for them to review. It'll be sometime in the first quarter next year that we'll get the feedback from that audit. We're thinking that hopefully everything will go smoothly. It has in the past, but that's just my message to each of you. How you can help us keep things efficient here at Aiden is to really keep the records up to date. Okay, I think I've beaten that up enough, Mary Lynn. I'm going to turn to you now that I've given you that segue to talk about payments, if you could.
All right, thanks, Kevin. And I'm going to apologize in advance. Believe it or not, of all the timing, there happens to be a backhoe doing some work right outside my window. And so you might hear a little beep, beep, beep now and then. So I apologize if Kevin,
Not
maybe
hearing it, Mary Lynn.
you're not
It's all
hearing
good.
it. Oh, good,
No.
because it's it's just unbelievable at the timing. But anyway, okay. And Kevin, maybe you can confirm you're seeing on the screen now a PowerPoint
Yep.
presentation.
Good to go.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Well, payments. You know, payments is a very important subject. We hear from you frequently about, am I going to get paid for so and so? And I know this is, you know, you want to get something for all the work you're doing, right? So we try to keep you informed on a very complex subject. And we've learned that periodically Social Security will make some significant changes. It might be changes about documenting the services. It might be about ticket assignment. Well, they've made some very significant changes about payments. Specifically and only applies to the phase 1 payments, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. But I want to take a second to point out to all of you, that's why it's very important for you to join our huddle, because this is the only way we can give all of you an update of changes that come from Social Security. So I, just want to reiterate and thank all of you who came today, because this is important for you to know all the information we share, but specifically something like this that impacts you directly. So we're going to focus today on phase 1 payments. There's some recent changes, as I said, made by Social Security. It has to do with a proof of a service. And there's always been a proof of earnings. They always, they're not going to pay us if we can't prove or have some evidence the individual is indeed working at either trial work or SGA levels that's required by the respective payment type. But they've added that there's proof of service or a relationship. So today's training skims only the surface on the complexity of payment eligibility and processing. We don't expect you to be experts. We don't want you to be experts in payment. And the reason behind that, because you've got better things to be doing than this, we want you to be able to devote your time on the services, those 5, 8, and core services. Now, if you're wondering about, well, where could I find maybe some more information in regards to payments, we do have a section in Member Resources that's devoted to payments, and you'll be hearing a little bit more about that in a little bit later in the agenda today. So how does AIDEN get paid? An EN, not just the American Dream Employment Network, but all ENs only get paid based on the payment structure that the ticket program is designed. It's a pay for success model, which means that you are paid for outcomes, and the outcomes are related to a person working. You will receive 80% of the payment that we receive. We retain 20% of it. For each of the payments, there's a criteria that needs to be met. The criteria includes a level of earnings and a time period. It might be a single month or multiple months. And it's the gross wages for that calendar month. Keep in mind, paychecks or pay periods don't always line up on the calendar month, right? Unless you're paid on the 15th and 30th or 31st of a month, everything else is typically a 2-week cycle. So it might overlap with a couple different, the preceding and following month. Is there anything else that impacts phase 1 payments? Yes, there is. If the participant has a successful VR case closure, none of the phase 1 payments are available. If the participant worked during the 18 months prior to the ticket assignment, some or all of the phase 1 payments may not be available. So there is 2 factors that impacts phase 1 payments: successful VR case closure and work prior to the 18 months of assigning the ticket. That is why we have on the IWP, there's a section there about have they worked in the last 18 months. And I was talking to a member a couple weeks ago and said, you know, maybe we can take some time in the January or February huddle to talk a little bit more about that 18-month look back. But today we don't have time to do that. Today I want you to be aware of, back up here a minute, of what is needed for these phase 1 payments. Now, remember, payments come in 3 categories. And today, phase 1, we're going to be talking about, is where the gross earnings need to exceed the trial work level. In 2019, the trial work level is $880. That's gross wages in a calendar month. Phase 1 is divided into 4 milestones. The first one is if the individual is earning over the trial work level for 1 month, then 3 months, then 6 months, and then 9 months for each of the respective milestones. Now you're going to say, but wait a minute, Mary Lynn, it has 850 there. Well, you're right, because Social Security has not posted their 2019 payments at a glance, and so this 850 is the current trial work level, and it will be switched to 880 as we move into 2019. How much do you get paid when an individual hits one of these milestones for phase 1? Well, right now, this current year we're in, 2018, the EN is paid $1,409. And you would get 80% of that. And that's the amount we get for each one of those milestones as they're achieved. Doesn't make any difference if the individual is receiving SSI or Social Security disability. Now you might be asking, will these numbers change in 2019? We don't know yet. That's not been announced by Social Security. So right now, we can assume it's going to be $1,409. We have never seen it in the history of the ticket program where it went lower. We typically see a small increase. But for now, for the sake of training, that's just the number we're going to use. What has Social Security changed? Well, Social Security actually has oversight by Congress because it is federal legislation. And some of that oversight of Congress is directing them to make sure that they're being good stewards of payments, etc. And so they're kind of tightening the reins and placing some additional required information before you can get paid. What we recommend is a best practice. And that best practice is when a participant is working above trial work level, the member will need to collect pay stubs and post the pay stubs in the participant portal record under notes. Now this would be for the first 12 months of working. Does not mean you have to do this forever. Now you might be scratching your head on this one because we have never asked you to collect pay stubs unless it's been an unforeseen circumstance where for whatever reason, you know the person's working, you know they're working over trial work, but Social Security has not had that in their system. And you might be asking, well, why don't they have it? The individual's going to the local Social Security office. Why doesn't Social Security have that? Again, we can't spend time on that conversation. It could be a day-long conversation of why that is. For right now, what we want to get across to you is Social Security is basing their payment on, is there evidence that they earned over trial work? The easiest way for us to have evidence of that is if we can send the pay stubs in. So we are going to ask of you to maybe start that practice. Now, that's just kind of half of the equation. So we're going to talk a little bit more. Just bear with me on this presentation. Keeping you informed. So many of you have heard me say that Thursdays is the day that I work on payments. And because of some of these recent changes, Kevin actually has been helping me with some of this. So anytime I need some action by you. I have a question, or I need to know something, or I need for you to submit something. I will email you, and I'm going to tell you that there's been an update posted in that participants portal record under notes. I still might put an update in the portal record of that participant, but I might not need you to do anything. It's just a heads up. It's a way that I can keep track of some important information I need to know. Certainly doesn't hurt for you to see it. That's why we put it in the portal, but it doesn't require you to do anything. It's just an update. So if there's action needed, I will always email you, and it will say something like this. Employment status question. Please view ID number 913 and let me know the answer. And when I do that, if you are going to answer the question in the portal that I've asked you, if you're going to answer it right there in the portal, you need to email me to tell me you answered it so I can go see the answer. Okay, so if I ask you for something and you're responding to it, you can send me back an email, or if you put it in the portal, you gotta let me know to go read it also. So that way we can keep each other informed. Now, don't be worried if you don't ever get an email from me. It might mean we don't need anything. It probably means there's no action you can take, or we're just waiting on a couple of things, or it's too early for us to make a request for a payment or whatever. But the bigger change here is if you want to expedite your payments, a best practice is going to be that you start asking your participants to provide you a copy of their pay stubs. And it's very convenient, because you should be reminding them to go to Social Security office and report their wages through their pay stubs. So you can ask them to include you in on that. Well, what if I don't get pay stubs? Because we know that can be a challenge. Well, first of all, collecting these pay stubs only applies to phase 1 payments. So if you're supporting somebody who's all phase 1 have been paid for, don't worry about it. Or obviously, if they're not working yet, you don't have to worry about it. And we got some doodlers on our screen. I'm not sure how to get rid of those red marks, so maybe somebody else can figure that part out. But anyway, just have to put up with it. The EN, if you cannot get a paycheck or pay stub copy, or you don't have them, then what's your options? Well, option number 1, you'll just need to wait until Social Security has evidence of the earnings in their system. That will be a little bit of a delayed process. There's no working around it. The other option, we still have to wait for them to do that, but the other thing you will have to have if you don't have pay stubs, well, let me rephrase that. You have to always document your services. That's not negotiable. You have to document your services. Kevin talked about the audit. We're always being asked, what have you done for services? So if you can't get a pay stub, you can't get a hold of the person, or they won't cooperate and send you one, the only other way that we can get paid is we're going to have documentation that you made a monthly contact and document what services you provided under participant services. Remember that if you cannot get a hold of the individual, like you left a phone message, or if their phone was disconnected, just put that in participant services, because we have to make a monthly contact. And then if you can't get the pay stubs and they come up on the Social Security system that they do have the proof of the earnings, then what I have to submit instead of pay stubs, I have to submit copies of your documentation of services. If there are no participant services posted for the month we're asking for a payment, or if it's one of the months for phase 1 payments for 2, 3, and 4, then I'm not even going to make a request. So it's pretty simple that you need to have your documentation done. And why do you document? It's because it's required by the ticket program. You document, you made a monthly contacts. Monthly contacts. Social Security is requiring monthly. That changed back in August, I believe it was, or July. And if there's no participant services for that month, I can't request it. So we need your help on making sure you're documenting services, that you're making that monthly contact. And if you can get those pay stubs, that's going to expedite things. Okay, so what if I can't get the pay stubs? It's the same thing as above. You know, if you don't, if the EN doesn't have them or you can't get them, it's the same thing. Pay stubs. Yep, there's some rules about pay stubs, believe it or not. Social Security will only accept pay stubs that contain certain elements. You got to have the individual's name is going to be on the pay stub, the gross wages for the pay period, the pay date, pay period start date, pay period end date. They will reject it if it's missing any of those elements. So I know some of you guys have maybe put in copies of pay stubs. And I was like, you know, it got denied. The payment got denied because it doesn't contain this. Now, you can't control that. You're not writing out those paychecks. The company is. And some companies, maybe they don't have the pay period start date. Or maybe it doesn't include the pay date. But what Social Security has these elements that need to be contained. And they will not accept an employer prepared payroll report. And why is that? Because Social Security has got to see if there was taxes withheld, the FICA tax. So very few, now there might be an exception, but very few employer payroll reports will give us all of this information, including that FICA tax. Usually it will say something like gross wage, net wage, if we're lucky for the net, but it won't show that tax being withheld. So let's assume you got a pay stub, it has all the things you need it, and you want to upload it into the participant's record. Well, you can scan that pay stub and you're going to put it under notes on the participant record. It's really helpful in the subject of the note that you could enter the year and the month. So October 2018 pay stub. And remember, on a note, you can attach up to 3 documents. So if you got 3 pay stubs for October, attach them all there. They'll all be October related. And don't get worried if half of the pay stub is a week in September and half October. It's okay if they say October. I'll go and look at them. So if you could just help by putting that in the subject line, that is a big help. Otherwise, if it just says pay stub, I got to go open up every one of those and figure out, okay, which is this month and which weeks and so forth. So it would just help to get at least down to the month. Do not scan all the pay stubs into one scan. If possible, please upload each one separately. So you might have 3 copies of a pay stub. There are 3 different pay stubs, copies of them. And if you could put in 3 different entries, that's going to be so much easier, because I often have to tear them apart. I'm going to take, okay, I got to take, now if I got one big scan, I got to take this pay stub, copy and paste it into a Word doc and save it, go get the other one, save it. It's just not real efficient. Another favor, if you could even be so specific to name the pay stub scan. A lot of the scans that get uploaded into Portal have just a hodgepodge of numbers. It's probably related to your scanner. And therefore, again, to keep them all straight, it's just can be a little bit of a nightmare. If it's possible, I'm not saying you have to do these things, but if you can help me and put on there like 10.2018 pay stub, at least that helps me. I know, okay, that's an October one. It's an identifier for me. And the last little tip here, once you upload it, and go and look at that scan to be sure you can see it? Because if I can't see it, Social Security is going to reject it. So, or if I can't see it, I won't even send it to Social Security, because if it's too blurry, too light, too dark, upside down, whatever. I mean, we need to be able so they can read it. Now, I have taken those that are upside down or sideways and turned them around. But I would just ask, why don't you look at the scan once you have it uploaded and saved, and see what it looks like for you. And if you sent that to Social Security, do you think they would, accept it? So when does a member get paid? We get asked this question. Around the 20th of the month following the receipt of the payment. So if the payment was received in November, you will be getting paid somewhere around the 20th of December. It's a direct deposit into your bank account. And before we can deposit it into your bank account, we need to know your bank account information and have authorization from you. We can deposit it. So prior to that first payment, you will be sent forms from me to complete. And it doesn't take, 10 minutes for you to do that and send them back to me. How do I know if I'll be getting a payment? Well, there's a way you can check that. You can go under your member org record in the ADEM portal, and you go to the gray toolbar. Here's an example. And on that gray toolbar, you always will see the second one is a contribution. The fifth one is a grant. You're going to look at the contribution. I know you might think, why do you call them contribution and grants? I don't have the answer for you, except that that's the way it came from Civi, which is the product we use for the portal. If it was our choosing, we'd probably call it, payment from Social Security. But it's called a contribution. So that's where you'll see if you're going to get a payment. You're going to be able to see on which participant is the payment for, how much, the date, etc. Now, how do I know when I got paid? That's a different tab. When a payment has been made, the name that you put on the payment authorization form along with the email address, they're going to get an email that says, hey, there's a direct deposit going into your bank. It will be deposited on Thursday, December 6th or whatever. Where do you go find it on the portal? It's under the grants tab. And that tab will give you the total amount of all payments from the previous month. So if you got 3 payments in November, they will all be added together, and the grant will show 1 grant in December for that total amount, which would be 80% of it. So you will only find when you're getting your payment under grants. You will find when money has been received by AIDEN from Social Security for your participant under contributions. What can you do to help get paid? If a participant is employed, be sure you have entered a relationship with an employer in the portal record. We need to know they're working. This comes up very frequently. Gosh, we haven't gotten any payments yet for, Joe Smith. Well, let's go look at Joe Smith's record. Do you have it in the record that they're working? Oh, no, I don't. Okay, it's got to get done. It's got to be entered. All right. How do you find how to do that? You can go to the portal guide. That's where it gives you instructions how to do that. If the participant is employed, another thing you can do to help get paid is keep that information current. Is the dollar amount they're getting paid per hour and the number of hours and the starting dates, is all that still correct? You want to keep it current. Next bullet, discuss with the participant before assigning the ticket. Discuss with it during the time you're developing the IWP and at the time they're signing the IWP and when they're starting a job. you need to remind them to send you a copy of the pay stubs for the 12 months of employment. Now, they could email those, they could fax them to you, they can mail them to you, copies, but they'll need that. And I know there's a lot of questions, so just bear with me. This is my last slide. You're going to post pay stubs under notes in the portal record and email me that you did. Don't forget that last part. If you're putting in pay stubs, let me know, because I'm not going to know they're there unless you tell me. So that's something else you can do that helps. And then the very last bullet here, the payments are very complex. I know there's a number of you on the call today who have told me, oh my God, am I ever glad that you deal with that? Because it seems very, very confusing. There's lots of, exceptions to policy and et cetera. And the payments are delayed. So we ask that you just be patient and trust that we're keeping an eye on them. But we can only keep an eye on them if you put the information that we need to keep an eye in the portal record. All right, so I'm going to probably look at some questions here. I don't know, Kevin, if you...
I can help with those. I can help you with these. I've been watching, and some have been addressed, so let me jump in here and help you.
Okay.
But these are for you. I have one. Oh, first of all, whoever put the etching on the screen, email me privately. I've got Pull at the North Pole. I'm going to get you an etch-a sketch for Christmas. We have a question from Nancy. She says, can we create an FAQ on the specific information about the pay stubs and how that should be processed? And that's one of...
Sure. We actually do have a section on payments with an FAQ, and we can add to the FAQ. I'm not quite sure what exactly you want added. Did you pick up on that, Kevin?
I think the details, like how do you prepare this, and and I think that this is a good thought in some ways. We do have the wage reporting fact sheet, and I think in there we do talk about the elements that need to be on that paycheck stub, Nancy. So we could look at that. I think it's really similar. It's really what SSA needs. But let me move along.
It would be the same. It would be the same.
Yeah. Right, that's what I was thinking. So I would look at that first, Nancy, and if that doesn't address things, let us know, because we're always willing to, improve and or make new products if they're needed. But she also Nancy has another question. She says, also we could use an electronic CC of the PowerPoint, of course, that's no problem. And this is the piece I think we need you for. It says also, if in the trial work period, but under 880, okay, and of course you wouldn't be using a trial work period month if you're under 880. But she's wondering, do we upload that whole period of pay stubs, even if there's months below trial work, so you can see that pattern over the whole period, or do you just want the months uploaded where the person earned more than trial work level, Mary Lynn?
Okay, that's a good question. Remember, you have heard probably me say this, and maybe Kevin. When you're operating EN, there's two different roads that you're on. And that's the way I usually explain it. One road is you're a business person. You're trying to see if you can get paid for the services you're provided. That's your business hat. The other road you're on and you're looking at after is the benefits and the work incentives for the individual. So I'm strictly talking right now about the business hat. And as a business hat, to get paid, we only need copies of pay stubs that the ones that we're going to be submitting are going to have to be showing over the trial work amount. If you want to upload those that are under, you can, but it does add extra work for me to look at them and say, oh, okay, that one's under. But I can do that.
I have a thought on that, Mary Lynn. I mean, from the beneficiary side of the fence, thinking about things from a CWIP point of view, it might be nice, Nancy, if it was me, what I would do is I'd have a tracking sheet, like a spreadsheet, like you did through Cornell, to track monthly wages. And even if you don't need to report that to Mary Lynn to get paid, I might still have that tracked just so you can see the pattern your participant is in, so that you understand the use of work incentives. That's a separate issue. So like Mary Lynn said, there's two reasons we would want to be looking at these numbers, okay?
And I'm going to add a couple more things to that. We do have my benefits tracker. We have that tool. You could use it for your own purposes if you want. It's under member resources. But the other thing is, because of the way Social Security handles, if you got a pay stub that's 1 week August and the other 8 days are September. So, if it's just blatantly obvious, they're earning $400 for the whole month, or they're earning $500 or $200. There's no need to put pay stubs. But if you're like, oh my, it's on the fence, there might be a month we're over trial work, because if you add a little bit of this end of July and then a little bit at the end of August, that all end up being August, gosh, maybe it does add up. So if you're ever in doubt, you could put them in there. But
Mary Lynn,
if
I'm
they're
sorry.
way under, don't bother.
Okay. I'm gonna push you along to the next question, because we have two more good questions I think should be addressed in our recording here. The next one is from Idella and Ibel. She needs a clarification. Do you want each individual check scanned separately, or can they go ahead and put all those in 1 month, the paycheck stubs from 1 month, in one PDF document and attach that?
I would rather have them separately.
Okay. That's why I wanted you to answer that one, because the other thing I'll tell you folks about, payments, I could tell you I've processed in the past a lot of payments. And the one thing that stays the same about payments is that the rules always change. So it's good to have an expert with us, and that's what Mary Lynn, she really is a payments expert. One more question for you, Mary Lynn, from Barb in Connecticut. When do we need to start uploading these pay stubs? Do we need them starting in January? Do you want them retro if they're already working?
We really try hard. We don't want to make you do something that's gone, in the past. If you happen to have them, which I kind of hope you don't have them just sitting around, but if you happen to have them, or you can get them very easily, and they're for past months that you have not been paid for yet, but you think maybe you could or should because they're over trial work, go ahead and upload them. But for sure, starting today, moving forward, go ahead and get started. Now, it's going to take you a while. You're going to have to work that out with the individual. You might not even get a hold of the individual. You can't change that. So just start them as soon as you can, maybe start getting them. That might mean, January. It might mean February. But the bottom line is this: we're not going to get paid by Social Security if we don't have evidence that they're working at the level that's required for phase 1 payments, which is trial work, and that if we don't have that pay stub, we got to show that documentation of services. And if you don't have anything to document because you didn't make contact, which is another whole problem unrelated to payments, because you've got to make monthly contact, attempted contact. If you can't get a hold of them, write that in, participant services. So we rely on both of those things. And I know this is a big change, so please don't go bananas. It's a huge change, so we'll work through this.
I was going to remind them, Mary Lynn, that we are the messengers and the translators for them to figure out these new conditions that we operate under. So sometimes we're at the mercy of these changes, folks, but I think we can survive all this if we take these steps that Mary Lynn's laid out. This was an excellent overview, Mary Lynn. And because we're about 15 minutes from the top of the hour, that's all the questions. Just so you know, you've addressed all the questions. I think we should move back to the agenda.
Yeah, and I apologize. I knew that was going to take a while. So, okay, agenda's back, going up on the board. Oh, I'm next. Okay, sorry. I should have just stayed there. Okay, we got some fun news for you, or at least things I think you'll find fun. The member resource list, and I'm going to take a minute because I do want to show you that also. So bear with me because we got a new look for a couple things. So Kevin, maybe as I'm pulling that up, you can tell about the the next one. I'm gonna
Sure. Why don't I move to updates, and Mary Lynn, go ahead and do what you're doing. I'll just start talking about the updates a little bit. We'll just switch the order a little bit.
Okay.
So we do have quite a few forms. As you can imagine, it's the end of the year. We're trying to get ready for 2019, and we have been. And well, there goes. I think Mary Lynn's ready to. This is one of those things. I'm going to talk to you about forms, but we're pretty excited about this because we've gotten some feedback from members about the member resources. It's hard to find things, and you know what? We agreed with you. And look at what is going on now. Marilyn has got a whole new look here, reorganized this by categories. Look at this. This is fantastic. We hope that you like this. Marilyn, why don't you talk about when this is going to actually go live?
It's actually live right now. It went live
It
today.
is live now.
Yep.
Okay.
And so there's categories. Under each category is a respective tool or resource and the date it was most recently posted. You can just click on them. So it's the same it's pretty much the same as the old one. It's just the format and layout is different. So you can scroll through and find the category if it has to do with employment, financial, marketing, payments, which, by the way, there's an FAQ for payments, and then portal related, SSA information, ticket assessment and assignment and unassignment, training, and VR Partnership Plus. That's pretty much in a nutshell what I wanted to show you with that. The other thing is just an FYI, we did change. If you're talking to a beneficiary and they want to know when is the next Benny outreach event, you can go in I want to work into the website and you can click on training. Oops, sorry, it's not training, resources. And these are alphabetical, which I know can be a little bit of an inconvenience, but if you keep going down, there's going to be one on the second page. Social Security work incentives, a message for hope. And if you click on that, we have now the dates listed for all of 2019, and they can click into there to get the URL and get right to the event. So that's the second thing that I wanted to
I'm just
show
going to
you.
jump in real quick, Marilyn, and say that also our welcome message has been updated to include this link when we talk about training for participants. So they're going to get this right out of the gate when they get their ticket assigned, this link to that. But we need you to let them understand how that works.
Okay, so Kevin, did you want to talk about the attaching the placement letters?
Yeah, okay, so a question came up about where to put things, and that's always a question that we get, and it's understandable. Maybe we could go to the Anna record, Marilyn, real quick, and not that they really need to see it, but I just want to make it visual. Most things that you will put into the system in terms of your work with participants will be under participant services, under activities, we get that. But there are key documents that make sense to put in notes because you won't have many of these documents, and as we're with people for years, which we have examples of that now, and if you go into activities and you want to find one particular item, going to be very difficult. So certain things should go under notes. We talked about paycheck stubs as an example today. Here's another example Mary Lynn is putting together here, a placement letter. So when somebody's placed, like you're going to send a letter to SSA, they just got the job, and then later they say, hey, we didn't get proof. You never told us you got the job. And you as the member are going to say, of course we did. Here's the letter, and it's easy for you to find. You might want obviously the IWP goes here. You might want to put the BPQY here like we have. You might want to put an important letter that comes from Social Security here. My point is that if you want to easily find something later that's generally, most of these things are related to BWIA service, not all of them, that might be a better way to organize the record just because it'll be easier to find it, okay? It doesn't mean you're wrong if you put it someplace else. The IWP, no, there's no question, we want it in notes. If you find your life is easier to put SSA placement letters and activities, you can. But I can tell you, if you're getting us involved, for example, to look over your shoulder at a case or something, we would probably be looking in notes for those things. I hope that makes sense. So it's key documents that you can put there just because it's easier for you to find. Now we're going to move right into the updates and the forms. Marilyn showed you the update to the layout of the website. I hope that's much easier for you. We'd love your feedback on that if it's easier for you to find forms. But as far as forms, we have a number of new forms that we've already put in play here. The 2019 IWP technically probably could have waited till January. We wanted you to have it. It is significantly different in some ways. We're hopeful that this new format will help members remember the key elements that should be in the IWP. You will find that it is set up in a way that you have to click in these form fields. Now, I was going to mention this. I don't want to get too far off base here, but we did not lock this form so that you can tab through it like a form field form, okay? because a lot of members in the past were saying we want to modify it and make a few, IWP is not the best example, but maybe we want our logo too or whatever. So there you go. We didn't lock it. So this won't act like a true form, meaning you can't just tab between these fields. I can show any member that wants it set up that way so that you can tab through like a form. If there's somebody out there that isn't real familiar with Word, I could show you really quickly how to restrict editing is what they call it. Okay, and that creates this form field format, folks. Okay, so that you could tab from field to field. Why am I telling you all this? Because some of the form fields have messages in them for you. They're hints. This is what we want you to put here. This is what you put here. And so you'll see when you open that. We hope you like it better. We think it's going to make your life easier. There is a new intake form. We've already gotten some feedback on that. Some people seem to like that. We put some new links and information in there and just a different layout. And we hope that you like that. I think it's just a whole different look. Take a look at that. If you're not using our intake form, that's fine if you have your own. But if you do use ours, make sure you go and get the newest version. You'll like it much better. All the products that have trial work or SGA level amounts in them, I'm not going to say have all been updated, but we are in the process of updating all of them now. Before we leave by the end of December, we'll have all those updated for you. That will include, your bar templates, which I haven't done yet. I'm working on those. It'll include a lot of our training materials and some of the other tools that you use. So be patient with us. You'll see those getting uploaded and changed throughout the month of December in preparation for January 2019. Lots of materials get changed. We also changed the GuideWell contact information. So you might want to look at that resource if you are using GuideWell. You can find that under member resources. You know where to find it, but there has been an update there to the GuideWell contact. Probably important for you to know if you're using them, as I said. Okay, so that's the forms currently we'll tell you about. There is something else coming up here at the end of the year, pretty important. We've already found some of you have addressed this. Thank you. We talked about it in November. We need the SSA 222s completed now. This is the security awareness training, and basically it's how you handle personally identifiable information. We want the SSA 222 signed and uploaded to your record by the 14th of the month. You will find this SSA 222 on the website. Okay, you'll find that it has our pre-populated date for January. Should be 1/4/19, and that's what we want everybody to sign off on now for the year ahead. Okay, and now you will put that. And by the way, Mary Lynn's pointing and helped me here that she put it right in the welcome message where you're going to find that. Okay, the link is right there, making it really easy for you. She's good at making things easy for us. So go ahead and just click through, fill that out, put it, upload it into notes in your record, and let us know. We have to know you've completed that, or you won't get credit for it. In other words, we have to code your record. And many of you have already been doing this. We appreciate that so much. Okay, and Mary Lynn's showing you the welcome message and how to go ahead and see that the link is there. She's already got to click here. See that? Click here to find the 2019 SSA2. Pretty easy. Can take you right to it. And there's nothing to it, folks. You just need to review it. And I am going to review some of these things in a really, really abbreviated training for you today. But basically, print it. You need to sign and date it. Actually, you don't. I take that back. You don't need to date it. We have the date pre-populated in there. Just sign it, scan it, put it in your record, email Mary Lynn and I, got it uploaded, done. Okay? So there you go. So if somebody did the SSA 222 and it did not have the pre-populated date in it, the answer is yes. We need everybody to have the same date. There's a reason. I'm going to report to Social Security in January that everybody's got it done with that date. That's why I want that same date, okay? If that is something you could get done by the 14th so we don't have to chase you down, we would very much appreciate that. And it'll make the end of our year things that we're finalizing much easier. Let's talk really briefly about PII. What is it? You've gotten this in your orientation from us, so this should not be new information. It's any piece of information that can identify our participants. By the way, when I think about PII, I think about you, our members too, in terms of how we're getting you cleared. We're just as careful with your information and how we handle your information, although I'm not sure others see it the same way. We do. We don't want your PII revealed any more than anybody else's. So that could include a social security number, a date of birth, person's name, an address. Remember that if you violate any of these terms, or any of us do, it can lead to EN contract termination. They're not kidding about this. All right, I have examples of of people that have kind of fallen into this trap. We've got good examples that have been in the news over the years too, and this does not end well for anybody. So we got to take this seriously. So here's a few basic rules we want you to know. You can't email things with PII, period. You just can't email information around about a name, an SSN, definitely not an SSN, not even a name of the participant. That's why we have an ID in our system. Our system allows for those CIVI IDs to identify any of the records you want us to look at without even mentioning a name, okay? You can always talk to, I shouldn't chuckle because it's not funny. You guys are taking it serious, but sometimes I'm on the phone and people are like, can I talk about this, Kevin? I'm like, yeah, you can. We're on a secure line, we're on the phone, it's fine. You can't email it. You can't, have it out there in any unsecure place. The portal's where you want to keep things, right? That's item 2. All PII should be kept in the AIDEN portal. No hard copies. That keeps us sane and allows us to sleep at night when we know that that's how you're handling this, okay? Now, will you ever have a hard copy? Of course you will. You'll probably want to print something at some point to review with somebody. That's fine. We don't care. Shred it when you're done. If you print something out as a hard copy, get rid of it when you're done. Everything that you want to retain, keep in the portal. All right, there we go, because that's secure, obviously. I already mentioned that. Do not release any or disclose any SSA information to an unauthorized person, okay? So that's another issue is when you're dealing with third parties, make sure consents are in place. If you're in the marketing pilot, there's some additional rules that Mary Lynn and I have reviewed with you. It's a little bit separate from this security awareness training, but just as important, and it does kind of, align with what we're talking about here today. So those folks in the pilot know what I'm talking about. We need to destroy that information when we're done with that. I already mentioned, I'll mention it again because we're serious about this. Hard copies, shred them when you're done. If you do violate a PII protocol, we may have to report that to SSA. I don't like to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't ever want to have to do that, okay? So don't put me in that position. Be careful of handling of PII. As far as a few other notices here, mentions I thought would be important to you, if you're in an office where you got some traffic, you shouldn't leave your computer screen just free and open. I mean, put a password protected screensaver up. That solves that problem. So that's how you lock your computer, okay? And don't, I would say don't leave a file on a desk if you're in a busy office with people's name on it or something like that. Kind of, I know that feels like a little more secure when you're in your office. It's your safe space. But it's not. You've got other customers coming in, floating around, other people seeing things that are not cleared. There you go. So that's the PII instructions will be played out a little bit more fully in the security awareness training, the SSA 222. Okay, so you'll see more of that there. Now, we have great information to share with you, Karen. I'm going to push this off for good reason. I have this prepared for us. We were going to talk about how to insert an email or a text message. And I'm so sorry, Karen, we had worked on this today to get this prepared, but she's got some computer issues anyway. So this might work well for us to put into our next Huddle agenda, Mary Lynn, I think, for that piece. I do think we're going to have to push off Trish's piece too and have both of you join us on the next Huddle because we want to honor your time today. And I don't want just a minute. I want you both to be able to explain these things. Trish is going to talk to us about the use of Skype and other video conferencing means for her interactions with participants now that they're doing some, providing some virtual services. And I just wanted her to share her experience. It's really, I think, great to hear it. And I want you to know that Trish will be on the agenda, as will Karen in probably January. Mary Lynn, I think, well, let me just say that the December trainings you can find posted, obviously. No changes there. We have our core trainings in December, and they're on the calendar. January Huddle, next Huddle will be on the 8th because of the holidays. So that's not as, it's typically the first Tuesday, it won't be, obviously, in January. That's why we're noting that today, okay? So note that on your calendar so you don't show up here on the wrong day in January. And Mary Lynn has some holiday announcements of our schedule.
I do, and I just noticed that I thought we had a holiday greeting here and it disappeared. So I apologize for that. We had a little bit of an issue with Dropbox. So I don't know if it took it away or what happened, but Our offices will be closed on the 24th, the 25th, the 31st, and then January 1. Kevin and I will have some work hours, but they're going to be fairly limited for the 26th, 27th, and 28th. And we're not trying to be lazy, but we're trying to share with you our philosophy is to try to take some time to spend with family and appreciate and recognize the reason why we had this holiday season. And we ask that maybe you take consideration of that as well and give yourself a little bit of a break and catch some, catch up with some sleep and maybe catch up with some quality time with those that you care about and want to be with. We wish we could be with you. We wish we could have a holiday party with you. We certainly appreciate everything that you do for those that we support, because that's who's the most important person of all that both you and Kevin and I care about. And with that, I'm just going to wish you a safe holiday season. I'll let Kevin have some closing comments, but I want to add one quick thing. I want to make sure I got everybody's name down who attended. So I know we're like a minute over, so just don't hop off momentarily. Let me just try to get through that participant list one more time while Kevin gives you some greetings. And there was a question Denise asked about, and Denise, we will bring that back around in the January huddle as well. Just obviously we had some really important stuff to share today. And because there is some ways that you can help a person with reporting their wages if you so choose. Okay, Kevin.
Well, it's hard to top what you told our members, Mary Lynn. I think that was beautiful, really. I mean, I think that's what we should all be doing during the holidays. But, on the huddles, I think often we kind of hit you with all these things that we have to be doing. Here's what we're not doing, or we need you to do this, we need you to do that. And we do share stats, and I don't want you to, or any of us, to lose sight of the fact that we have hundreds of people working that we're not working as a result of this program, as a result of each of you. There's no doubt in our minds that we have some very committed members, and that's what I'm thankful for this holiday season in terms of Aiden. And when I think of our members, and I do hope you get a little time to recharge, because we got a busy year ahead of us. We've got goals that we will be sharing with you in January for the year ahead, and I just appreciate each of you, and hope you do get some time to just enjoy the things that have gone right this year for us professionally and for your families. With that, I wish you the best in your holiday season. Take care, everybody.